Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, Alyna Haji Omar, the Chief Executive Officer of Wunderman Thompson, is in the hot seat today as we continue to focus on the local ad industry. The LMD Nielsen Business Confidence Index continued its upward trajectory, gaining 14 basis points in February. Nielsen's Managing Director Sharan Pant has more on this. And we wrap up this edition with LMD's columnist Sharan Fernando, who provides his perspectives on Sri Lanka's macro outlook. That's the lineup for Benchmark.
Hello and welcome to the Big Picture Business Program Benchmark. I'm Savitri Rodrigo. And so our discussion on the ad industry continues, and we're happy to have with us in our studio Alyna Haji Omar, the Chief Executive Officer of Wunderman Thompson. Over the next 20 minutes, we look at the many challenges the ad industry is facing and is going to face, as well as the state of digital advertising in Sri Lanka and how effective it is compared to other countries. So, we've got an interesting discussion ahead of us. Welcome, Alyna. Lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, if you look at the ad industry in general, very briefly, what do you see? What is your assessment of it?
Well, I think it's in this wonderfully fascinating space right now, and that has come as a result, I think, of this almost renaissance of creative living and creative thinking. So we're seeing clients value the creative process a lot more. We're seeing people that work for us live in a more immersive sort of creative atmosphere. So whether it's about traveling more, which more people are doing right now, and then bringing that kind of life experience back into the job, or simply understanding what is happening in the world more because of the access they have to different tribes and different areas. I feel like that is directly contributing to this renewed appetite for exploring creativity.
Look at digital advertising. Somehow it seems to be, it is evolving, but in Sri Lanka, we know little, or there's very little of it that we actually see compared to other countries. Now, when you launched the Island Escapes campaign to promote Sri Lanka as a year-round destination, you said the digital extension is vitally important and it is really the mainstay of the campaign. So how would you describe digital advertising the way it is here in Sri Lanka?
I think it's phenomenally evolved, and I think perhaps when you said we don't necessarily see it, that perhaps is the more true part of the statement, in that we're seeing now more clients, more brands, certainly more campaigns move almost entirely into the digital space. So think about it right now. At this very point, I can most likely tell you where consumers are and how they are feeling, and then activate on that information. And that I can do as much here in Colombo, or as in Mahianganea, or in Ampara, as I can in Paris, Spain, Rome, any of those places. So with the acceptance of how powerful digital is within say boardroom forums, or forums where people don't necessarily understand the real impact that it has, is perhaps where the challenge lies. If you're asking me, do consumers, and especially a younger generation of consumer, do they understand how to activate themselves, their agendas, their activism, their own personal brands within the digital infrastructure? They absolutely do. I think it's up to us to be able to reach them and to effect our brand conversations into what is already happening.
So do you think those corporate decision makers are old-fashioned?
No, I think that's a broad statement. I think if you look at the kind of clients we work with every day, we are being challenged in a very real way to push the digital envelope. And that is coming from, say, clients themselves becoming much more evolved, the kind of training, the kind of focus. If you're asking me, were we all late to embrace it and late to understand exactly what kind of tsunami was coming at us? Perhaps some of us were. But by and large, I think that right now we are at 30% internet penetration. We are at 80-90% if you look at some TGs. So I've got brands within the Wunderman Thompson ecosystem now that are already 100% digital brands. So I think maybe some people have not understood the power of it yet, but by and large, really progressive, really important clients, both big and small, are understanding the power of it.
In this equation, like you said, there are brands that are going 100% digital, which is fine. Where does the mainstream media fit, or how is it going to fit in the future?
Well, over here, still mainstream media, especially things like TV, still fit. If you look at other markets, also we're not seeing the death of print media and the death of TV haven't happened with the kind of vigor and the kind of finiteness that everybody predicted it would happen. It's still very relevant. I think it goes to show that, say, for a medium like TV, the entrance of, say, things like Netflix have changed how we consume TV, but it's still very much TV, and that will continue to play a part. It will continue to evolve. Platforms will evolve within the digital ecosystem and then reinvent its value.
There are concerns associated with digital advertising, or should I say social media advertising, web security, privacy, those things that come up. Also politicization of the media. How effective then is digital advertising compared to the above-the-line activities that happen in Sri Lanka?
So, okay, I agree that there has been a weaponization of information and how it's delivered to people. So we've seen it influencing riots, we've seen it influencing things like what we're going through right now. But the question of if that makes it less effective, I don't know. I think there is a certain need to regulate it. There is a certain way that we must be a lot more focused on how we consume it responsibly. How all of that needs to happen. But I don't know that we can make the claim that the weaponizing of it, much like the weaponizing of TV over a century ago when it came to propaganda in other spaces, it's just a question of trying to understand how you protect the platform, how you protect the information, and actually how you teach and how you inform audiences to make up their own minds and be a little more critical about how they consume the information that comes off any channel.
Is your industry, I'm again generalizing, is your industry ready for that digital revolution?
Well, ready or not, it's here. So we better be ready, and we are ready. It's a question of are we ready? Are we ready for an all-powerful consumer who is now not always aware of whether some information that is being presented, what the agenda behind that information is? That, I think, the globe has found. I mean, if you look at what's happening in America, if you look at what's happening, say, anywhere in the world, it's a question of saying, how do we intervene now to ensure that we really know that something that is presented to us is real? With artificial intelligence everywhere now, we're looking at something and we're really asking ourselves, is what I'm looking at now even real? That question is really something quite scary. What kind of information, what kind of content has been manipulated for audiences is, I think, a question and a problem all over, and I don't know that we are as ready as we ought to be for that. But certainly the ship has sailed on whether we should be ready or not for a digital revolution. It is here, it is a part of the mainstream, and any good client, any good agency, any great platform needs to be ready, and I would think is ready already.
In this scenario,
Yeah.
what are the challenges your industry is facing then?
the speed of storytelling, the agility of how a certain story arc adapts between different platforms. It was always one TV commercial, one print ad maybe, but now it's what is Savitri like? Because I am able now to create content specifically for you, serve it to you, and then say, what is Roshan like? Serve him a version of the story that is suitable to him, because again, I know where you are, I know what you're doing, I know what you like, and that kind of data is available to us. So the real opportunity is in this hyper customization is to get it right, is to make it interesting. It's not to be this evolving like mountain of junk that sometimes we keep coming into. There is a risk, much like there is on TV, of just bombarding people with information and irrelevant sort of information. The opportunity right now is to really harness the quality of the information and the data that we have, and the quality of how we serve it.
Going in for a commercial break, so we'll be back soon. And on the other side, Alyna Haji Omar will expand on the key strengths that the Sri Lankan ad industry has, which can be compared to that of the other countries, and also pinpoint which areas that the industry needs to improve to meet global standards. Do stay with us.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
$8,500 done. 1,500 to go. Hoorah!
What on earth are you doing?
I'm making money.
You're crazy.
Crazy for money. 10,000 steps done. Who the man? I do it every single day. Show me the money.
So you run 10,000 steps every day, huh? You must be fit.
Some days I do 20,000. Hoorah!
Thank you for staying with Benchmark. We're discussing the ad industry with Alyna Haji Omar, the Chief Executive Officer of Wunderman Thompson. Alyna, in your opinion, which communication channels should marketers focus on developing here in Sri Lanka?
I think that's a really valuable but broad question. I think different channels for different audiences. We've had a rich infrastructure, various channels for a long time. We've got a rich suite of TV options, radio, press, magazine, now digital. The quality of the content across the board could, I think, become more engaging and richer. But one space that I really do think that would be incredibly valuable to explore are really immersive experiences. So experiences that kind of cross the line between a physical and digital world, something that provides a lot of entertainment, because every research group we get into and every time we meet consumers, especially younger ones, the question of there's nothing to do. Yeah, there's no fun to be had. All our fun seems to be around food or going out for a drink or now going to a movie or going on a trip. So really, brands can capitalize on that. We are an island of fun-loving, adventure-seeking people. If we can capitalize on that and create immersive brand experiences that are new, fresh, and fabulous for everybody, I think we'd have a real opportunity there.
Recently, Sri Lankan ad agency was recognized at the D&D Impact Awards in London as in the environmental sustainability category. Does sustainable branding have a role to play here in Sri Lanka?
Absolutely. And I think from the point, from like right through the entire value chain, it does. From how the advertising happens is one thing altogether, but from product development, like the one, the fantastic Leo Burnett campaign for petal paints, in fact. But if you look at packaging, if you look at the real commitment that brands need to make to more sustainable packaging, the social issues that we are embracing, the kind of change that we need to affect in society, coming from these brands could be very powerful. So absolutely.
What are the key strengths that the local ad industry actually has compared to other countries? There have been agencies that have won awards globally.
Sure.
So if you look at the key strengths that we have, how would you pinpoint them?
I think we're super strong in a lot of areas. Our planning capabilities are phenomenal. We have some incredible thinkers in this market. We have some incredibly talented writers and art directors. Where the real gap sometimes comes is in the finish of it. So the execution quality that is where perhaps we sometimes don't stack up, and that is due to a lot of things. It's due to budget, it's due to available resources, whatever it is. But I would think we are second to none when it comes to our creative thinking capability and more so our planning capabilities.
In 2009, the former creative director of Dentsu Masako Komura said Sri Lankan advertising was, within inverted commas, nice, emotional and heartwarming, but a lot needed to be done to strengthen quality to meet international standards. In your view, which areas of the industry actually need to improve to meet global standards?
We need to be braver more often and push creative boundaries as far as they can go, and I think we'll surprise ourselves then with what we have, because if you take Japanese advertising or Thai or Indian or whatever, there is a sense of identity that is so innate to the market that creativity is bringing. That sense of identity seems like it's still coming of age here. We have individual silos of greatness and more of them. But I really do feel like we need a sense of identity and a sense of self-awareness, which will then contribute to the depth of what is our perspective? What is a Sri Lankan perspective on, say, let's take the most recent campaign that we're involved in, So Sri Lanka. The whole point of it was to say, yes, we are more than just warm and hospitable. What are we? What is the quality of our warmth and hospitality? Sometimes what is missing is that deep dive. So what is our perspective on say motherhood, or what is our perspective on women and the stories that we must perpetuate where it comes to changing the context of how we speak of and think of and raise our women, our children, and all of that. So I really do think that if we are braver, if we push ourselves a little further to go beyond sometimes what is neat and nice and easy to consume and easy to sell, we will find phenomenal success.
So this is a subject we could chat about for an hour,
Yes.
or maybe two, or maybe a week even. But as my final question, what is your outlook for the ad industry here in Sri Lanka?
I'm very optimistic. I'm so optimistic that we are a proud, loud, funny, interesting, smart bunch of people. If you look at the number of young people infiltrating the spaces that were supposed to be the layer of more senior people, and people really making. I have youngsters in the office who are coming in and redefining how some of our brands are working, redefining how the kind of energy we bring to our clients, and allowing that, nurturing that, and really infusing that with the 150 years of legacy that we have and learning that we have, bringing the two together. So it's the energy that there is visible quite clearly, and all of the learning and understanding that we have brought in terms of experience, welding that together and allowing that to spring forward is very exciting.
I love your optimism and your enthusiasm about the industry. Thank you so much, Alyna, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So we've been discussing the ad industry with Alyna Haji Omar, the Chief Executive Officer of Wunderman Thompson, and on the other side we have Anushan Selvaraja with more.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Done. 1,500 to go. Hoorah!
What on earth are you doing?
I'm making money.
You're crazy.
Crazy for money. 10,000 steps done. Who the man? I do it every single day. Show me the money.
So you run 10,000 steps every day, huh? You must be fit.
Some days I do 20,000. Hoorah!
Welcome back to Benchmark. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now for a closer look at the latest on the L&D Nielsen Business Confidence Index. Joining me is the Managing Director of Nielsen, Sharang Pant. Welcome back to the show, Sharang. Now, just to start off, the BCI is on firmer footing now, right now. So what are the sensitivities behind this?
Yes, the BCI has moved up over the last month, and it's right now standing at about 115. So if you see what's happening around us, I think it's largely due to the political stability plus improvements on the macroeconomic front as well. Inflation is still down at around 1.2% as such. The currency surprisingly improved a bit in the month of February, so that's also had an impact. And we also see certain policy changes which are encouraging. So all in all, the business leaders are feeling confident, and therefore the index has moved up. some sort of a stability is also seen on the consumer confidence. So which was at about 53 last month, it is still at about 51, 52 this month. Reasons being, consumers are still holding on. They just want to see whether this continues, the stability continues, and whether they'll have more disposable income in their hands to improve their consumption. We see some bit of improvement in the FMCG space, but whether a similar improvement is seen in the durable section, in the telecom or the finance industry, we need to wait and watch for that. But in general, sentiments have moved up.
So what do the respondents have to say in terms of our economic and business prospects?
So when it comes to the overall economy, I think about 11% of the business leaders in the previous month said they feel the economy will improve in the next 12 months. That is more or less at the same percentage. About 12% of them say it will improve. So while the macroeconomic anticipation is more or less stable, when it comes to their own businesses, there is a bit of a positivity. A lot of business leaders have called it out during our survey. Almost about 50% of the business leaders feel the next 12 months will be good for their business. About 1/3 of them feel the next 3 months will be good for their business. This is a significant improvement compared to last month. Talking about investment climate, now there's still a bit of anxiety over there. Maybe that's to do with the upcoming budget, so we need to see if there are certain incentives announced, if there are some favorable policies coming in which might improve the investment sentiment as such. But as of now, only about 7-8% of them feel the investment climate is ready for higher investments, and that reflects in their plans for the workforce as well.
What are the most pressing national and business issues brought up by the respondents?
So both the national and the business issues more or less remain same in what is being called out. For example, on the national issues, it's still political stability, it is still corruption, it is still the overall economy. Similarly, on the business front, it is still the higher taxes, it is still the inflation rates and the value of the rupee. But the big change over the last few months has been the percentage of business leaders calling out these concerns has significantly come down. Previous few months we saw almost all or 100% of the business leaders calling out each one as a concern. That number has dropped to about 70-75% for the topmost concern, followed by around 60% calling out the second and the third concern. So yes, overall stability in the economy, overall political stability reflecting in business sentiments, and also the concerns, the level of concerns are now coming down.
Thank you very much for joining us, Sharang.
Thank you.
That was the Managing Director of Nielsen, Sharang Pant. We'll be right back after a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Anushan Selvarajan. Now for a closer look at the latest on our economy. Joining me is economist and LMD columnist Sharang Fernando. Welcome back to the show, Shiran. Now, in your article in this month's issue of LMD, you cite some major global issues. Could you just highlight them for us, please?
Yes, so I think what was a trend last year has completely sort of reversed heading into 2019. One of the key themes in 2018, especially in the first half, was global growth having some sort of a synchronized pace of growth where most of the emerging developed markets were growing together. But that story has fallen, and I think we're seeing certain countries declining in growth and overall downgrade of global growth. So I think that's the first concern, because we were expecting demand to pick up after sluggish growth for so many years post the global financial crisis. And that's also a function of, I think, the trade risks that are there, because that has a multiplier impact on growth as well. So those risks are also looming. We've seen things like the US-China trade war, Brexit, other tensions, political tensions as well, which are clouding the overall trade strategy. So those, that shift, I think, is the concern, because I think last year we were worried about more local factors, but now the global factor is also a bit concerning.
How will these issues then affect Sri Lanka particularly?
So I think one factor, I guess, is the Brexit, which has been a looming threat for the last 2 years since it came into play. Still there is uncertainty as to how it will play out. I think even policymakers in the UK are quite unsure how it will play out. Right now there are several angles caught about a no deal, some sort of a midway deal kind of a scenario as well, or if the actual eventuality of Brexit being shifted from the end of March to a later date, and even another option of maybe doing a second referendum. So many things on the table, and I think from Sri Lanka point of view it's very much of a risk because of our over 1 billion exposure in terms of export. So one thing that they've mentioned, especially under a no deal, they put out these guidelines, is the fact that trade concessions like GSP Plus will continue, and they will make secondary legislations to enact that. So those are some of the things that they've stated, but those things need to come into impact so that we are not affected. But definitely between now and the action point happens, I think there will be a lot of volatility and concern. But businesses will have to prepare for all kinds of scenarios.
Now the Fed rates, Shiran, have been increasing at a rapid pace, and slowing down of this would undoubtedly help Sri Lanka. But where do you see this going?
So while the trade side of it and growth side of it has been quite negative, I think the financial market side of it has been turned positive since October of last year. And a lot of it has to do with the Fed. And I think the Fed coming out and saying that they might slow the pace of future hikes. Right now, 2019, that doesn't seem to be a hike in the horizon, but that is also, once again, they've said data dependent. So where the data comes in from, whether the US fiscal shutdown will have an impact on this, because if the growth numbers come down, maybe they might slow the pace as well, and other political shocks that might come in the way as well. So that has been a positive. It could continue, and I think global financial markets have responded to it. Sri Lanka has seen, as a result, certain degree of foreign inflows as well. So that could be this inflows and outflows are very temporary, and I think the cycle has continued from 2013 onwards if you look at it. So I don't expect it to be a prolonged one of a positive to emerging markets, but depending on what the Fed sees it with the data that comes in, I think they will take future action.
Thank you very much for joining us, Shiran.
Thank you.
That was economist and LMD columnist Shiran Fernando. Thank you for watching Benchmark, and we hope to see you again next time.